Hello, dear students. I am ready with the must-read articles of 20th March. Okay, and I am Akriti Kanchi, your mentor from Prep IS, and I'm trying to help you read newspaper in the most effective manner. And today, in 20th March, we have a lot of facts important for prelims. A prelims exam of this year and otherwise also, and for mains also. Okay, so let's start with the today's newspaper. There's nothing on the front page. We'll directly go to the editorial page. Okay, so there's a lot of brouhaha around delimitation with southern states opposing it because of their low population, their number of seats in the constituency may reduce, right? So this is the discussion going on, and this writer has brought some solutions only in the first para. The second and third para is not important for us. Okay, it is not important for UPSC's answer writing or prelims. So a delimitation red flag, the lessons from JNK and Assam. This comes under GS paper 2, constitution, significant provisions of the constitution, right? So this editor is saying that to solve the problems in the mind of so many CMs and so many political people is to freeze the number of parliamentary seats, like that is the seats in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, but increase the number of assembly seats in the state whose population has grown. So that way the representation of population will also be reflected through the state assembly elections, but not so much in the parliament, right? So this will, according to them, this is more democratic formula, since MLA are the first port of call for their constituents, whereas MP represent their constituents on national policy. Okay, so they are saying Rajya Sabha seats could be redistributed in equal measure to the northern, central, eastern, western and southern states. Okay, now how it should be distributed, what should be done, the writer is recommending the use of zonal councils to discuss on these issues. You should know what is zonal council. Zonal councils question has come in the prelims. Okay, that's why I've written few facts about it. That the writer is suggesting zonal councils, though were intended to settle disputes between states, while the interstate council, which is a constitutional body, could deal with both state and center state relations. But in practice, zonal councils have been more active and interstate councils have not been active because their last meeting was held in 2016, right? So zonal council, you should know about zonal councils. Zonal councils are statutory body under which act? States Reorganization Act of 1956. There are 5 zones: northern, central, eastern, western and southern. Whereas the Northeastern Council, which represent 8 states, was formed separately by another act of Northeastern Council Act of 1971. 8 states are there. You should know which 8 states: the Seven Sisters and Sikkim. Okay, and Home Minister is the amongst the zonal council. Home Minister is the chairman. Vice chairman is in the rotating basis. The chief ministers of the states representing that particular councils are vice chairman on the rotating basis, and there are other members and advisors. Okay, and another council that the writer has discussed is Interstate Council, which was formed on the recommendation of Sarkaria Commission. Okay, Article 263 of Constitution recommends about that government should form interstate council to resolve state and interstate issues, where PM is the chairman. In zonal council, Home Minister is the chairman. Interstate council, PM is the chairman. Okay, and CM of all states are member, and six other union ministers are also members of interstate council. So you should know the difference between zonal council, interstate council. Zonal council is a statutory body, interstate council is a constitutional bodies, right? Let's move to the next article. Telecom Tribunal reforms to handle data protection, please. So data protection is very important, right? So Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has released the draft Digital Personal Data Protection Rules of 2025 under Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. So union government's discretion to appoint members of the Data Protection Board has been criticized by a lot of people. Now, a data protection board will be a quasi-judicial body, right? So, quasi-judicial body being exclusively selected by the executive body, separation of power issue comes here, because there is supposed to be separation of power between executive and the judicial bodies, right? So, these are some concerns on the separation of power and independence of DP. The Act and draft rules also state that appeals from the DPPs this data protection board decision will be filed in the digital form before the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal. It is also a quasi-judicial body formed under TRI Act. TRI Act was amended in 2000, and under that TDSAT was formed. So according to this new rules, TDSAT must dispose appeals within 6 months. What the writer is saying, TDSAT is presently not structured and capable enough to solve the cases within 6 months. So they are recommending 3 measures. What are those 3 measures? Institutional reforms that they are suggesting. First is appointment of technical member with expertise in data protection within TDSAT. Second is increased capacity to swiftly dispose of appeals. And third is technological updates to process digital filings. Okay, so these 3 improvements the writer is suggesting within the TDSAT to improve the quality of data protection rules and act in the country. So you should also know about Justice B.N. Sri Krishna Committee, why it was formed. It was formed to give recommendation on how Data Protection Act should be formed in India. So a question had come in previous years prelims question, that Kasturi Rangan Committee is related to which of the topics. So it was about Western Ghats, right? So Justice B.N. Sri Krishna Committee is related to data protection issues and data protection acts, right? So the TDSAT must be accountable in each of these respects, ensuring accountability is through the publication of annual reports. This is also one of the recommendation for DTSAT. That's it for this article. On another article, there is a lot of celebration all around the world. Safe from space. So you should have basic idea. GS paper 3, awareness in the field of space. Indian origin Sunita Williams and other space other astronauts have come back to Earth. SpaceX Crew capsule has bearing NASA astronaut Sunita Williams, Barry Wilmore, Nick Hague, and Roscosmos cosmonaut has been splashed down off the Florida coast. So Miss Williams and Mr. Wilmore has returned to Earth after 9 months in International Space Station. This was accidental. They were not supposed to be there for so long, right? So they went to test Boeing Starliner's crew capsule, but following Starliner's launch, a series of malfunctions happened, and that led to Sunita Williams and Barry Wilmore's on board the International Space Station for so long, right? So these International Space Station arrangements are better for the life of astronauts, because after the Challenger and Columbia shuttle disasters in 1996 and 2003, NASA has instituted procedures its personnel are required to follow in variety of situations so that they can save their lives, right? One is that astronauts on board malfunctioning spacecraft can move to ISS, which is always prepared to host such visitors, right? So these are good initiatives taken by NASA. Okay, let's move to the next article. So this article is about torture shadows India's justice system. This comes under GS paper 2, government policies and interventions for development in various sectors. So what has happened recently? Few criminals who are criminals in India have run to different countries, and government is expecting its extradition. Like Tahavvur Ranas, who had a hand in 26/11 attack in Mumbai, and Sanjay Bhandari, who is a fugitive. Okay. So, but these governments have denied sending it to us because India has not ratified to United Nations Convention Against Torture. So they are saying, since we are not ratified it, so those criminals have chances of being tortured in our country, and that is the grounds on which they are not sending. So the editor is saying we should work upon it and we should ratify these kind of acts. Okay. So though India has ratified several human rights acts like Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1976, very important, but its ambivalence in ratifying the United Nations Convention Against Torture is becoming a problem. Though the editor is quoting constitutional articles, Article 51 Clause C and 253 of the Constitution mandates India to respect international treaties to which India is a party, right? So a lot of committees, the Select Committee of Rajya Sabha had recommended a comprehensive anti-torture legislation in 2010. The Law Commission has also recommended in its 273rd report and is furnished the data for the proposed law. Human Rights Commission of India has similarly supported a stand-alone domestic comprehensive law for torture. Article 21 of the Constitution, which is a very important part of the Constitution, Supreme Court has said that torture in any form is unacceptable infringement of the sacrosanct right to dignity and privacy, right? So government needs to take some action here, right? So the editor is saying it is time for a democratic nation like India to seek a role as the world's more moral arbiter, right? And form a comprehensive law on torture, saying that torture in any form is a wound in the soul so intangible that there is no way to heal it, right? So you can, you can use these arguments in this area. Let's move to the next article. We have covered this article in previous, I think, a week back also, but I will again tell you because this can come in this year prelims also. Is the APAR ID for students mandatory? So this comes under GS paper 2 education issues and also privacy concerns. So in short, if I'll say the APAR ID is not mandatory, you should know what is APAR ID. APAR is part of National Education Policy 2020's record keeping reforms. Okay, it is voluntary. States and school authorities, but have pushed students to enroll in it. Okay, so what is the full form of APAR? APAR stands for Automated Permanent Academic Accounts Registry. Okay, government describes it as the one nation, one student ID. Like we have one nation, one ration card. Similarly, one nation, one student ID, in order to accumulate and store all the academic accomplishments, facilitating seamless transition between institution of the pursuit. For example, between school and the college, right? So the APAR ID is linked to Aadhaar and is stored in the DigiLocker. Remember these statements. It can be there in the statements of your prelims question. It is linked to Aadhaar and stored in the DigiLocker. The registry provides standardized data on their mark sheet and institutional affiliation. It is generated through the Unified District Information System for Education Plus portal, which contains regional academic statistics on data on schools, teachers and students, right? So the ID is a key aspect of National Education Policy 2020's mandate to overhaul education data collection for policy making and analysis. So these are important points, right? So Education Ministry has been pushing schools and CBSE and all are trying to give 100% saturation, but it is not mandatory according to a document posted on the ID's official site and circulars by CBSE, right? So the union government reconfirmed the optional nature of APAR ID in response to parliament query. So what is the issue? Why people are creating so much chaos around it, right? So according to the, this right to information activists, according to the internet freedom activists, this large scale collection of data of minors, which are children, without a law to back it up is unconstitutional. Okay, so and other problem is APAR is collecting this data under your, UDISE plus, but it is already being done by teachers. So it is a duplication of efforts also. Section 9 clause 3 of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 prohibits tracking or behavioral monitoring of children or targeting advertising directed at children by entities, because without any robust safeguards, you can cast the future of the children at risk. Okay, they can be misused against them, right? So we need to ensure cyber security. This is what is the article about. Let's move to the next article. This is also a small article. What are the different risks and rewards of using UAVs? You know, what is UAVs? Unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, what you call in the basic terms. So why are UAVs seen less of a threat compared to piloted fighter jets? So if your piloted fighter jets is being seen around borders, the current any country will take it more seriously than UAV roaming around, right? Why it is so? Because UAVs by large and less UAVs are less dangerous, since even those UAVs that are capable of carrying weapon payloads are still less capable than fighter jets. A large proportion of UAVs are not armed and serve surveillance purposes. Okay. So these are the issue and can also indirectly encourage risk-taking behaviors. But the challenge is, how will India effectively deal with UAVs, especially in relation to its neighboring countries like Pakistan? Right? So Pakistan has been doing this. Smaller propel-powered UAVs are often used to transport arms and drugs across the border, with the Pakistan government not taking accountability. Right? So as if it is coming out of fear. No. So Pakistan has been sending drugs and arms illegally. So now it is doing it through drones. And what is happening? The government has to use missiles, which is very expensive, to shut it down, right? So these are some issues how to deal with UAVs that is India is facing. It is internal security issue, comes under GS paper 3. Let's move to the next article. There's a small quiz which you should know as a UPSC aspirant if it comes as a statement. So This scientist is credited with developing the first successful vaccine. Which is the first successful vaccine? Edward Jenner. Sorry, who created the first successful vaccine is Edward Jenner, and that is a smallpox vaccine in 1796. Okay, around how many years? 200, more than 200 years back, right? So Edward Jenner developed smallpox vaccine in 1796, which is the only human disease to have been eradicated by vaccination. It is smallpox only, right? So to increase the body's immune response, this is the most common adjuvant added to many vaccines. It is aluminium to increase the the efficiency of vaccines. Okay, and this is an important data. How many number of years it takes for a country to be called polio free if there is no reported cases of wild polio virus? So how many years it should be there? That there should be no reported case of wild polio virus. It should be at least 3 years. 3 years of no cases reported in the public and open of wild polio virus, then it is called a polio free country. Okay, let's move to the next article. We have an article, yeah. Now this article is important from schemes point of view. Cabinet approves 4,500 crore greenfield highway to boost connectivity of JNPA port. You should know the full form of JNPA port. Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority. Where is it? It is around Mumbai, right? So Cabinet Committee chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi has approved the construction of 6-lane access controlled greenfield high-speed national highway, right? So the development of road connecting infrastructure to major and minor ports in India is one of the main focus area of integrated infrastructure planning under PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan principle. You should know about PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. What is PM Gati Shakti? It covers all infrastructure initiatives like Bharat Mala, Sagar Mala. Also, it is trying to increase cargo handling capacity and decrease the turnaround time. Okay, so it has subsumed 110 lakh crore national infrastructure pipeline within it also, right? So this comes under GS paper 3 infrastructure. It can be asked in prelims also. You should know about PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. Next, move the next article. Again, few schemes mentioned here. Cabinet approves additional outlay for Gokul Mission. Rashtriya Gokul Mission. What is the purpose? It is to boost growth in livestock sector in India. Right? So one-time assistance of 35% of the capital cost for establishment of heifer rearing center and encouraging farmers to purchase high genetic merit. This another scheme Cabinet has allocated for National Program for Dairy Development, which is focusing on modernizing dairy infrastructure and ensuring the sector's sustained growth. You should know about these schemes as well. Okay, this basic statement you can use of our Chief Defence Staff. Technology is an enabler, but boots on ground can't be replaced. Boots are important. This comes under GS paper 3 internal security. Boots on the ground cannot be replaced and technology will only be an enabler. Chief of Defence Staff, about Chief of Defence Staff has been asked in 2020 prelims. Okay, said at the Raisina Dialogue. What is Raisina Dialogue? It is India's flagship conference on geopolitics. Very important. You should know, it can be asked. Okay, so General Anil Chauhan, CDS, has said the global security environment is marked by two aspects, uncertainty and rapid change. Let's move to the last article of the day, directly at the science page. El Nino or La Nina. It is mentioned in your 11th geography book, Fundamentals of Physical Geography. Murky pattern of temperature keeps confusion alive, right? So it is very difficult to predict El Nina and La Nina years and how it will affect monsoon. Okay, so this comes under GS paper 1. Critical changes in geographical features, climate change, right? So what has happened? So the year they are assuming that it will be El Nino year, so it is not having that much of impact. So El Nino year or La Nina year, only 6% of deficit and surplus years have historically been accounted by El Nino and La Nina. Okay, so in 2023 early El Nino forecast was done, but monsoon was going to be bad, but it came out normal. So prediction was that monsoon are going to be affected, but it came out normal. So it is happening regularly. Similarly, La Nina was predicted for latter 2024, but it did not happen so again, right? So anomalies are shifting now, right? So La Nina, what is La Nina? La Nina events tend to have one dominant pattern. How does La Nina happen? The cold sea surface temperature in the eastern Pacific Ocean around the Peru, around the western coast of South America, that is Peruvian current, there the sea surface temperature becomes even colder. That is La Nina. And El Nino is just opposite. The sea surface temperature becomes warm. Peruvian cold current, it is cold. So El Nino becomes an anomaly, it makes it warm. And La Nina is opposite of El Nino. It makes the Peruvian cold current even more colder. Right? So you should know what is El Nino and La Nina. You should know about El Nino, El Enso. Enso is what? El Nino southern oscillation. Okay, this warming and warming and cooling of the sea surface temperature on the two sides of Pacific Ocean, right, which encompasses the warm state of El Nino and the cold state of La Nina. So El Nino is warming of the warming of the sea surface temperature, and La Nina is the cooling of sea surface temperature. This basic at least you should know. Okay, so the nature is asserting its will again with a confused ENSO, right? A warm sea surface temperature anomalies in the far eastern tropical Pacific and cold sea surface temperature anomalies in the central western tropical Pacific. So forecasts are becoming mixed. Some weather centers says a La Nina will emerge by fall, while some are saying it is a normal year. So it's going to be difficult for IMD forecast to say whether it is going to be a normal monsoon or a better monsoon or less than normal monsoon. So these are issues of climate change, and that's it for 20th March. Thank you.